how the story goes. It happened this.
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flash Fridays. Just got back from Imaging USA. It was a great show. We were down in Atlanta and I got to hang out and meet with a lot of my photographic heroes and fellow explorers of light. So some of the highlights that I really took in while I was at Imaging USA, you guessed it, is lighting. And I really got back to my roots and basics and looked at my photographic heroes like Dorn, Clay Blackmore, Greg Gorman, who I've admired since high school. Iconic images shot for Interview Magazine, Rolling Stone, outstanding. And I sat through their lectures and I was just absorbing it. And the thing that they kept coming back to was quality of light and the use of your light. I know I'm sharing with you a lot of technical stuff, but I don't want you to get caught up in that. What we're doing is we're just trying to find your photographic style. And I'm just sharing with you all the tools that you have at your disposal. Whether, again, you're using continuous light, available light, speed lights, big lights, it doesn't matter. Try and find your unique style, your signature that you can sign your image with. I do it through lighting. I'm always looking for that sparkle in the eye. And my key is bringing speed lights, and I use every kind of light modifier with me. I still use available light, you know that, and I use auxiliary lighting when I have to. So let's go on this adventure with lighting. I'm going to share with you some video clips from Imaging USA 2013 from Atlanta. I got some video clips. And then next week, I'm going to follow up with a segment of some images I created while shooting at the Canon Speedlight booth, using our Perfect Pair lighting kit and then going way beyond. Went from 1 speed light on up to 5. And I was working with a great model, someone that I always work with, one of the Canon models, Lorenzo, great guy. And we were able to pull off some unique looks, on the fly, on the trade show floor. So let's dig into What the Flash Fridays.
This is how the story goes. It happened this way a year ago. Kicking around the east side of town, just me solo. Enter stage right, cappuccino in hand, the princess of my fairy tale. Had to find a way to be her man, some way, somehow.
That never ever existed. So they knew that this was a grab shot. And that tends to be my style of shooting. I'm all about the moment. I'm all about the person and the essence of that person in the moment. And if it becomes camera aware, no longer is it the, however, what if this happened? I walk by, I nail him looking up at the ceiling. The picture comes back. Henry says, Margaret, do you remember the ceiling? Those beautiful paintings. All of a sudden, feelings come back. The thoughts that come back when they were looking up at the frescoes. That's what it's about. Find out who you are. Find out what makes you different from every other photographer that's pitching in your industry. Make the difference. Don't compete with anybody. Figure out what your strong suit is. Figure out who you are. Sell that person. Don't give away the files. It's part of my package, but it's at the end after the book is done. Don't give away the files. Don't give a disc. Don't try and sell a slideshow. Notice I call it a book. I don't call it an album. I call it a book. It's because I'm tapping into every input that I can that has sensory attached to it. Olfactory, taste. There's cookies on the table. There's apples. Touch. Smell. Sound. All of it. Because I'm trying to sell an experience.
So I count on that autofocus to a certain extent. I'm really using my viewfinder eye to think about the frame, the relationships of the various forms within the frame. I keep my left eye open to see what's outside the frame that I might recompose to include. For me, still photography is a matter of refine, refine, refine. Each subsequent shot, I try to refine the composition, and I try to do that in a sequence rather than taking the camera down and looking at the back of the camera. I try to keep it up to my eye because I shoot a lot of video, and in video you have to start with a great composition. They're called movies. You move the camera to another great composition.
Well, roll this, Bob. I got a real cutie here. A mother and daughter. We've got one big light source. We're going to see what we get here. Just beautiful. It's a little bit on the underside. So let's see if we can pull that exposure back just very simply by going to the menu, external speed light, flash function, coming over to -2/3 and going up a full stop, and let's try it again. Oh, you're such a... Oh, wait till you see this.
Yeah.
Wait till you see that.
Beautiful.
Woo!
Beautiful.
Look at that right there.
Light's hitting, so I know it's not coming across the nose and lighting up the nose in the wrong spot. Okay. Now I'll turn the light back around, which actually does help. And what's happening now, just with this is fairly soft. I used to use them without the diffuser. When they made the diffuser, I started using them with the diffuser. They work great. They're soft and they're very flat and light.
Well, I was a very late bloomer for the world of digital, because I always thought digital was a good excuse for poor photography in the early days, because when Photoshop first came out, I thought, well, this is a good way you can correct mistakes. So I kind of shied away from it. I've always loved little point and shoot cameras, and always had a passion for that. And so I was buying every digital point and shoot camera, but the main digital cameras, none of them really made sense. I was shooting a Hasselblad primarily. There just wasn't enough information in the digital cameras when they first got it, like 3 megapixels. You know, what are you going to do with 3 megapixels if you're going to make a big print? But eventually, when Canon announced it came out with the Canon EOS 1DS, they loaned me one to play with for an afternoon in New York. It was right before Photo East at that time, whatever they call it. And I went up to a friend of mine's apartment on the west side. This kid was a doorman at the hotel where I was staying. I grabbed him. He was getting out of work, went up to the reflector. And when I saw the caption, I looked at the actual capture, I saw how well digital sees light and low luminance. I was hooked. You know, I shoot a single light primarily, whether it's a strobe or whether it's a HMI or a tungsten light, and I just will then channel and manipulate the light based on that one single light source. And this is back when he was Puff Daddy, and he was a real pain in the ass, because I got about 4 frames of him without a cell phone glued to his ear, which was pretty rough for a big layout. Mickey worked before all the work. Mickey always traveled with an entourage, and Mickey loved doing pictures. Here's a crazy picture of us with Mickey downtown with his whole entourage. And this is actually, the guy laying down is a great actor, Lance Hendrickson. This is actually one of my secretaries at the time in the foreground, and the guy with the big belly was actually the makeup guy. And the guys in the background were friends of Mickey's. Early portrait of Mark Wahlberg. Kevin Costner, this is for Vogue magazine. That's my stylist legs. He's sitting in my swimming pool. Portrait of Julianne Moore. Window light, I love window light, because again, you've got a single point light source that's softened down and it really creates beautiful light. 80 Bomb on my rooftop. Guess they go to the bathroom. Billy Idol. And this is great. I did a show with one of my heroes, Albert Watson, in Copenhagen, and he had the picture. I had this picture. He had the picture from behind of Mike Tyson. Jeff Koons for an advertising campaign. Again, there's a contact sheet. There was a final image. That was a set built in our studio. Portrait of John Milk. This was actually a cover of my 3rd book, and we actually gave him a mud nest and let it crack. John Waters' lips, kind of a signature picture. And again, talking about the importance of being spontaneous. I was doing an ad for LA Hours, and Jimmy James came in and was doing an ad as Marilyn Monroe, and he was halfway between the transition between male to female, and this moment of isolation and loneliness where he was just sitting here, to me was a far more interesting picture than it made up in drag. Eric Bana, when Natural Light in my cage. Betty Davis. Marty Scorsese and Sharon Stone shortly after Casino. Quentin Crisp was amazing. He came in the studio at 10 in the morning. I said, "Quentin, would you like a cup of tea?" He goes, "No, but a beer would be lovely." And the late behind, who was one of my best buddies, and my two assistants are holding all his chins up behind the feather boa. And Michael Jackson, Michael was an amazing subject. I worked with him many, many times, and I really liked him so much. And he was fantastic to work with, because before we would do a shoot, which is rare for a celebrity, I mean, he would call me, we would talk for like 2 hours on the phone, and he would have all these different ideas of what he wanted to do. We would kind of plan everything else, and he would show up. I was so relaxed, because I'd come in, we knew exactly what we were going to do. He would come in like an art director with scrap. I mean, this picture obviously stemmed from a photograph by Gloria Swanson. I did the styling or Speedless one of them did that one with the lace. And the next picture, Michael called me and says, you know, we're shooting in a couple days, Greg, and my pet tarantulas just shed their skin. And they look exactly like us. It's like the tarantula. So he brought a couple of them with him, and we actually just put this tape into his face. I think that was maybe in the I already showed you that one. And
this is how the story goes. It happened this way a year ago, kicking around.